Namaste everyone, Namaste specifically to the Rishaba Rasi natives. Now let's understand the Rishaba Rasi first of all, or the Karakattvas or the characteristic of a Rishaba Rasi before we move on to the predictions for the Guru Peyarchi, Vilambi Varudam or 2018 for the Rishaba Rasi natives. So to understand Rishaba Rasi, you just need to understand three important concepts. One, a Rashi which is a Rishaba Rasi which is under a complete influence of Shukran or Venus. Second, a Rashi which is considered as a Sthira Rashi. Sthiram means fixed. Sthiram means an energy which is deeply concentrated in just one particular space or one particular place, which means it is immovable, it's non-movable. Third, it becomes the second Rashi from the natal zodiac sign. So, just based on these three things, that is, Sthira Rashi which is completely influenced by Shukran and the second Rashi, you can come up with all the Karakattvas of the Rishaba Rasi. So what are the characteristic traits of the Rishaba Rasi? 1. Extremely hardworking individuals, stable, practicable in their ongoings or whatever they take up, dependable in nature, stubborn at times. All of this becomes their basic characteristics because they are a Sthira Rashi. But at the same time, a Rashi which is under a complete influence of Venus or Shukran, which means Venus who symbolizes all the sensual pleasures of life, all the mayas of life. It could be the physical pleasures that you want to have in life, the material pleasures that you want to have in life. Or, to put it shortly, somebody who's like the connoisseur of all the good things in life, like, the good food, the good clothing, the good house, the good lifestyle that you want to lead. So it is not a paradoxical element that, somebody who's hardworking, practical, should not have great lifestyle. No, it is absolutely in congruence. It's absolutely in correlation to what you actually do and what you actually get. But what happens if you are deeply stuck that, this is the kind of life that I want. This is the kind of lifestyle that I want. This is the kind of partner that I want, because you are deeply loyal. So once you get into that relationship, you just want that relationship to work out for you. So there is no backtracking from that relationship. So on one side it is good, but on the other side you don't create options for yourself. You don't create option number 1, option number 2, option number 3, which means I just want this kind of a life. So this becomes an element of a problem as far as your life is concerned. Which also means the second Rashi automatically means the second means the Vak. The second means something to do with eating. So something to do with, having this good way of speaking to other people, good way of communicating to other people, sweetly talking about your things or sweetly talking your way out. All of these are the good things. Being dependable in the sense that you actually like to help a lot of people. You like to show a very, very pleasant outlook towards life, meaning you are pleasant also, but you have a lot of worries which can be hidden inside you. The worries because of what? You have so many high ideals in the sense that you want this great lifestyle. And remember, not everybody gets everything. It cannot be that, you have the best of clothing, you have the best of places to work in, you have the best of houses, you have the best of partner. Now, all of this does not come together. But what if you want all of this together? So here is where something to do with being worrisome, being worried about things. And in turn, because you're worried for what? You want these things and you're not getting these things. You being an Adambara Priya, not getting what you actually want in terms of these complete things in life can lead you into worries, which can make you lazy, which can make you slow. Why? Because you don't, or for that matter, you cannot have an action plan to get almost anything and everything in life. Any relationship and every relationship in life. So one, it can make you indulgent also at times. It can make you slow. It can make you lazy. It can also lead you to succumbing to a wrong relationship or not the nicest of relationships. Why? Because let's imagine there is a person who promises you this great life, who promises you anything and everything. And for your kind information, there are very few or there are no people who can give you anything and everything. So what if a person who's just as sweet as you in talking, who's just as nice as you in, telling you that I will give you that, or I will give you this, or I will give you that emotional support. So there's a lot of times when you can succumb to wrong alliances, wrong relationship. Now, I'm not telling you all of this to worry about this or pine over this or resent over this. The idea of Vedic astrology is very simple. It's for you to understand your hidden tendencies, your hidden patterns. And once you're conscious about this, you can decide whether you want to, take a grasp, or you want to be grasped according to the situation, or let these situations pan out as they are. So it's as simple as that, friends. Alright, so now let's get into the predictions for the Jupiter transit or the Guru Peyarchi for Rishaba Rashi 2018 Vilambi Varudam. Now friends, Jupiter signifies the 8th from your natal Rashi. So 8th means what? 8th means negativity, 8th means chaos, 8th means confusion, an element of mystery, and some element of grievances. So a graha like Jupiter is supposed to be doing nothing good for you, at least as far as your Rashi is concerned. But the point here is, throughout the previous transit, before this transit, the Jupiter or this Guru was getting into the 6th from your natal Rashi. So 6 signifies what? From a classical, simple Tamil astrology standpoint of view, it signifies the Runam, Roham, Shatru. So it is almost like a bad person getting into a bad situation in life, which means a graha which indicates not the nicest of things for you as far as your Rashi is concerned, getting into a Marevasthanam or getting into a placement where he is losing his strength is completely or was completely an advantage for you. Advantage means here when something to do with chaos, when something to do with conflicts, confusions gets into a position where it loses its strength, it just means suddenly out of a chaotic moment you gain something. Suddenly when you least expect certain things to turn around in your life, it happens for you. But nonetheless, Jupiter is generically considered as a Shubha Graha. And Jupiter individually has its own characteristics. So what are the characteristics of Jupiter? It gives somebody a marriage. It gives somebody a child. It gives somebody the goodness, which could be in the form of dhanam, or which could be in the form of the shubhas that has to happen in somebody's life. So, it could just be that you gained out of certain chaotic situations, but something to do with a marriage could have been a problem. Or something to do with a marriage to happen itself could have been a problem. Something to do with a child could have been a problem. Or children could have been a problem. Or something to do with forbearing a child itself could have been a problem. Something to do with getting sudden luck or getting things suddenly because of a malefic placement of a graha in a malefic position was definitely an advantage. But to get that breakthrough in the form of a promotion, but to get that breakthrough in the form of that right kind of a job was again getting into a problem for you. So this current transit or this transit of Jupiter, wherein a Jupiter who signifies all these good things in life is actually getting into that 7th from your natal moon. So automatically this becomes a huge plus for you in the form of giving you that marriage, giving you a good married life, giving you something to do with goodness owing to children or in having a child itself. And the other thing which is simultaneously happening in your life, which is for people who have a Rishaba Rashi, is you're going through a transit of Saturn which is 8th from your natal moon, or what we call as Ashtama Shani. So here Ashtama Shani cannot be highly amplified for a Rishaba Rashi native. Why? Because Shani or Saturn becomes the Yoga Adhipati, especially when it comes to a Rishaba Rashi native. So nonetheless, the impact of Ashtama Shani would definitely be there. Now how would this impact be? It would be like you getting an opportunity to almost climb to that peak of that mountain. So just at that point when you almost are close to reaching that summit, suddenly you would, topple and fall down. So that is the only indication which happens as far as the Ashtama Shani is concerned, which means it gives you a good amount of lesson. It gives you a good amount of maturity to handle your life. It also gives you a complete awareness of, what your strength or what your potential is, because remember, you almost climbed up the entire mountain. You just had that summit to actually cross over or to cross into, and it is just then that you actually toppled and fell down. So an Ashtama Shani is all about teaching you a lesson. An Ashtama Shani is all about teaching you a lesson which in future, which in or after a certain point in time. When I say after a certain point in time, right now, right at this point itself, because you're getting into a transit or you are into a transit which is favorable from a Jupiter standpoint of view, is going to give you certain breakthroughs, is going to give you certain balances which you probably deserved, which you probably wanted throughout the last year. Why? Because Saturn automatically controls the 9th from your natal moon, the 10th from the natal moon, which indicates the Dharma Karma Adhipati, which means something to do with the gains that you probably get out of a job, or something to do with the goodness that you probably want as far as a job is concerned. So this Jupiter transit is going to be favorable for you in more than one ways. One, from marriage, children, goodness owing to children. And since Jupiter is transiting into that 7th from the natal moon, that is your natal moon, it automatically means the 7th of your relationship with people around you. The 7th of something to do with the relationship that you share with your spouse. The 7th, which indicates the goodness that you gain from the other people in life, is definitely a promising sign. The other thing that you need to understand is Jupiter gets into a Rashi which is the Vrikshaka Rashi, and here Vrikshaka as a Rashi itself is controlled by Mars or Sevai, and Vrikshaka Rashi indicates your 7th from your natal moon, which indicates your spouse, which indicates the relationship that you have with your spouse, or something to do with the relationship in general, which could be about partnership, which could be about, matters related to romance with the other person, which could be also about something to do with gains owing to relatives. So this sign, which is the Vrikshaka Rashi, which signifies your 7th, which indicates something to do with spouse, the relationship, friends, friendship, something to do with other people, is controlled by Mars, and Mars automatically gets into an exaltation. Now what does this actually mean? This actually means closeness between the husband and wife. Closeness between something to do with partners. Closeness in matters of romance with your partner. Closeness with the relative circle. Automatically, if the 7th, which is controlled by Mars, is getting into an exaltation, it automatically means something to do with the goodness which would operate from the spouse or through the spouse. So, chances of your spouse getting into a new job, getting into a new occupation, being able to give you that element of support automatically is there as far as your natal moon is concerned. Now friends, let's look into the effects or the influences or the kind of predictions that would happen during the Jupiter transit or based on the Jupiter transit for Rishaba Rashi during the phases of Athisaram, or what we call as direct motion, or a Vakragati, or what we call as a retrograde motion. Now, as I already told you in the previous video, there is nothing called as a retrograde, there is nothing called as a fast forward motion or a direct motion. It is just that we are looking at everything from our standpoint of view, that is from we being in the earth plane, looking at the movement of the planet. So since we are geocentric beings, we are just looking at it from our standpoint of view. So it looks like a graha is moving backward, or it looks like a graha is moving forward. So fast forward or direct motion is Athisaram, or moving backward is ideally referred to upon as Vakragati or retrograde. So according to the Vakram or according to the Athisaram that Guru is going to be taking, there are going to be certain patterns of influences on Rishaba Rashi, just like all other Rashi. So when does this happen? This happens between Masi 29 தேதி to Chitrai 15 தேதி, which is ideally a 48-day period between March 13th, 2019 to April 28th, 2019. So what can you expect during this period, or what can Rishaba Rashi natives expect during this period? Now, to explain to you as to how this thing would happen from a predictive standpoint, let me just come up with a hypothetical story or a kind of an analogy. Now, let's imagine that you're getting married. So it could be a boy or a girl, you're getting married. So marriage itself is a Shubham, or itself is a good karya which is actually happening in your life, correct? But when a marriage happens, like we're considering about, or we're just looking into Rishaba Rashi only. So let's imagine for a Rishaba Rashi native, or just imagine for you, you have a marriage which is definitely a good event, but nonetheless, it is something which is new in your life. You need to adjust with a whole group of people. So first you start off with your in-laws, you have to start off with your wife or your husband, the relatives associated with your wife or your husband, and then there has to be a phase for honeymoon, which means you need to be away from the relative circle and spend that time with your near and dear one. Now, this is exactly the kind of pattern of how certain things are going to be working out for a Rishaba Rashi during the Athisaram phase. Athisaram phase means when Jupiter gets into a direct motion from Vrikshaka Rashi to Dhanusha Rashi. Now, what happens during this point in time is, I've told you that this Jupiter transit is definitely good for Rishaba Rashi because a lot of changes, a lot of associations, good things happening for you. But nonetheless, this change is something which is not very, very even. This change is not something that you have, you probably waited upon. It happens suddenly, and it is difficult for you to go about and manage with the dynamics of the situation, because nonetheless Guru becomes the Attamadhipati for your Rashi, which means somebody who signifies something which is mysterious, which you cannot find out on, or which you cannot find out about. So an Attamadhipati getting into that 7th from your natal moon automatically indicates good relationship, but you're not being able to get the hang of the complete relationship. So when a Guru gets into the Athisaram or gets into a Dhanusha Rashi where he is supposed to be comfortable, he is supposed to be fine in that particular place, this grip of this Attamadhipati also leaves you. So what would happen is that for people who are married, automatically this analogy or this hypothetical story can be applied in dictum itself, which means this would be the honeymoon phase. So what about the rest of them? Like for example, if you're into a relationship, so you would be into a situation wherein you're not very, very clear about what to do with this relationship, whether you should move forward or whether you should hold on to that relationship. So that's the time during the Athisaram, that is when it starts from Masi Masam 29 தேதி, you'll get a complete hang of what to do with the relationship. If a marriage, if a marriage is on cards and people are talking about your marriage, you will get a clarity that this is the time when something to do with the marriage can be finalized upon, or I should proceed with that marriage. So that finalization part would happen. Next, something to do with the childbirth. So, something to do with being at that pregnant phase. That would automatically happen. Something to do with people in job. So you get into a new job, you get into a new atmosphere. It's a good job, it is a good atmosphere, but you're not able to get that hang of that particular place. So that's when you would be able to accustom yourself to that particular place or to that particular atmosphere. For people who are, or for kids or for students who are, into studies, again, something to do with a new course, something to do with a new school, a new environment. Again, something to do with, getting a complete grasp of that particular situation, and somehow during the Athisaram phase, you would get a complete grasp of this particular situation. So this entire phase would be lasting from 29th or 29 தேதி Masi Masam to Chitrai Masam 15 தேதி, which is going to be from March 13th to April 28th, 2019. And after that, Jupiter or Guru would get into a Vakragati, which means it looks like it's moving backwards, or it would move backwards technically from our geocentric point of view, and get back to Vrikshaka Rashi, and automatically again he would start giving you newer relationships, He would give you some new kind of an alliance. He would give you something owing to partnerships. He would give you the goodness that I've already told you earlier. Now, let's also look into how the transit of Jupiter is going to impact a Rishabha Rashi from an aspect perspective. So Jupiter gets into the 7th from your natal moon for Rishabha Rashi, and from that 7th he would be aspecting the 11th from your natal moon. So the 11th Rashi from your natal moon, which signifies Labam or gains in life. The 11th, which signifies an Ubadoril, which means an additional income or an additional job or an additional occupation which gives you some kind of a monetary gain. So if you probably have a passion, or if you probably have a hobby which you want to convert it into a job format or give you some kind of an earning, yes, this is the right time to look into it. If you're probably looking at closing some major deals, because remember, we are talking about solid gains and not even earnings. So yes, you can do that. Now when I say solid gains, what can this be? It could just be based on the Sancharam and based on the Athisaram and the retrograde motion that we discussed earlier. If there is a possibility for you to construct a house, yes, it is a good time to go ahead and do that. If you probably have a house and you want to give it on a rent or give it on a lease, yes, this is a good time to do that. If you probably have a house which is not giving you any form of an income from a rental standpoint of view, or if you have a commercial property which is not giving you any kind of an income from either selling it out or either leasing it out or renting it out, this is a time when all of this would actually start happening. Now, by the way, the 11th also indicates a second alliance in your life. A second alliance properly talks about people who probably had a marriage which was not great and had to annul a marriage owing to certain consequences. So this is also a time wherein you can actually also look into something to do with a second marriage, or ideally something to do with a second turnaround in your life from a marriage standpoint of view. Now Jupiter also aspects the Rashi, which is the Rishabha Rashi itself. So when a Jupiter aspects a Rashi, we are ideally referring to a major turnaround which can happen in your life. So what are the major turnarounds which can happen in a person's life? Ideally, the first starts with a marriage. The second starts with something to do with the birth of a progeny. Third, something to do with getting into a new job, getting into a new occupation. So all of this will automatically happen for you during this current transit owing to the aspect of Jupiter. Now Jupiter also aspects that 3rd from your natal moon. The 3rd, which indicates the initiatives that you probably take in life, and owing to the initiatives, you gain some kind of a result. You gain some kind of a goodness. So any kind of an initiative that you probably take, which could be a new venture, which could be a new occupation, which could be about initiating a new alliance in your life, which could be about initiating a new partnership in life, yes, this is the right time to go ahead. Now, as I already discussed earlier, Mars gets exalted as per the Gocharam. So Mars signifies Bhumi or land. So if you're probably looking at buying a land, if you're probably looking at selling your land also to a certain extent at a proper price, yes, this would ideally happen at this point in time. Now, Mars also indicates something to do with your sibling, and this gets into an exaltation, which automatically means gains owing to a sibling. And the reason I'm telling you that, especially if you have a younger sibling, because the 3rd from your natal moon automatically indicates the younger sibling in your life. So yes, you can look at a sudden support that could be happening owing to a younger sibling. You could also refer upon into situations wherein you could probably get into a lot more closeness with your younger sibling, or not just the younger sibling, even though it signifies the 3rd, but because of an exaltation of Mars, it also means something to do with a cordial, good relationship with the sibling, because of which you will be able to get a good amount of results physically, mentally, emotionally, and even financially. Alright friends. Now friends, let's look into the predictions. Predictions for obviously the Rishabha Rashi. Rishabha Rashi based on the Sanchara of Guru. So what is the Sanchara? I've already explained in the previous video. Sancharam is nothing but the travel that a planet takes, the planet or the Graha. At this point in time, we are ideally referring to Guru or Jupiter, which is right here, which is in the 7th from your natal moon. Natal moon means this is Rishaba Rashi right here. So according to the Sancharam, which means as it traverses across or as it moves in from one constellation of celestial nakshatra to another constellation of celestial nakshatra, it gives you a result, it gives you a prediction from an astrological standpoint of view. So we are going to be covering the Sanchara Palangal for Rishaba Rashi based on the Sancharam of Guru from one constellation of nakshatra to another constellation of nakshatra. Now the first Sancharam is the Sancharam which happens between Purattasi Padanettam Dedi to Aipasi Moonam Dedi, which is October 4th, 2018 to October 20th, 2018. Now here Jupiter transits into, or Jupiter traverses across the nakshatra of Vishakam. So Vishakam as a nakshatra itself, or Vishaka as a nakshatra itself, is under a complete influence of the planet or the Graha called Guru itself. So here Jupiter is supposed to be doing or giving you whatever it is supposed to be giving from its own characteristic standpoint of view, based on whether he's friendly with your Rashi or whether he's not friendly with your Rashi. So obviously Guru is somebody who's not very friendly with a Rishaba Rashi native, because he becomes the Attamadibadi, which means something which signifies losses, something which signifies trials, tribulations and the ups and downs of life. But nonetheless, a Guru getting into a favorable transit for a Rishaba Rashi native has to be giving it whatever it is supposed to be giving it from its own characteristic standpoint of view. So what is it that it would be giving or delivering throughout the Sancharam of, going through the Sanchara of Vishaka Nakshatram from October 4th to October 20th? Anything to do with all the Shubhas associated with Guru in the form of Thirumanam or marriage. Anything to do with, something to do with a progeny or childbirth. Anything to do with the wellness of a child and all the Shubha Karyas that you probably need to have as far as your life is concerned. So it could be about a delayed marriage which was going on for a certain point in time, or which was happening for a certain point in time, which means alliances after alliances. You don't get that right marital alliance. Yes, that would happen at this point in time. Something to do with childbirth, from, having a child or begetting a child. Yes, this is the time for something of that sort to happen. Something to do with the wellness of a child, which means, having a child who's going out, getting educated, or perhaps supporting you. All of this is automatically going to happen. Now, when I'm referring to the Subhas or the Subhikshas, what could be the ideal Shubhas or the Shubhikshas associated with your life? Something to do with your job. Getting some breakthrough as far as your job is concerned, getting something as far as your business is concerned, a new line of business is concerned. And since there is an association with that 7th right here, it automatically means something to do with your partner or something to do with your husband or wife, vis-a-vis, whichever way it may apply. So this automatically becomes a good or a favorable period in time, but we also need to understand one important thing here. Guru is the Attamadibadi, which means ups, downs, trials, tribulations. So it just means all these good things are going to be happening right here, which I've mentioned. But at the same time, the 8th also has to function in some way or the other. So how would that function? A marriage happens, but you're not very clear about the marriage. You're not very sure about the partner, which means, there is an element of dilemma associated with it. Something to do with a childbirth happens, or something to do with begetting a progeny happens, but at the same time, there is something to do with Vaidya Selava, or there is something to do with medical expenditure. There is something to do with expenses owing to, hospitalization, or, just going through that entire process of childbirth, because somehow the 8th is operational. Or, there is an element of effort that you probably need to put in order to groom your child, for people who already have a child. So a marriage is getting balanced out, but at the same time a lot of effort has to be put in order to understand your partner or to make your partner comfortable, and in spite of all that you do, there is a small missing element that you don't know why. Why? Because the 8th is functioning automatically. The Shubha Karyas that you probably need to have in life, all of that also would happen, but at the same time, the 8th. The 8th means, something to do with the 8th also has to automatically happen, which means a new job, a new environment, something to do with getting into a new college, getting into a new school, getting into, something new from an education standpoint of view, but still, you're not very, very sure. Still, there is an element of uneasiness associated with getting into that new thing. But remember, Guru signifies all the Shubhas and the Shubhikshas of life. So it is something good, but at the same time, there is something to do with not being sure about things. There is an element of unevenness. There is an element of unsurety also associated with all of this. So what is it that you can do at this point in time? So here, we need to understand one important thing. Here, we are ideally referring to a Guru who is a complete Shubhar, irrespective of what he is with your Rashi or the association that he has with your Rashi. So the best way in order to go about and mitigate and not nullify all of this, nullify the little minuses that you would have during this period, is to connect with Guru. So connect with Guru in the form of a Dakshinamurti. That would be the easiest way out. And connecting with Dakshinamurti, how? So you can connect with Dakshinamurti. Dakshinamurti, if for North Indians, you can directly connect with Guru. But the easy way out is to connect with Shri Dakshinamurti on a Thursday. And how do you connect with Dakshinamurti on a Thursday? Very, very simple. You just need to be offering Dakshinamurti 108 chickpeas, or what we call as Kondakadle Male in Tamil. Every Thursday, offer him 108 Kondakadle Males on a Thursday. So this is an easy way to actually go about and nullify, or I wouldn't say nullify, but mitigate the situation to a certain extent. Mitigate the situation to a certain extent from what perspective? Purely from a mental perspective, because anyways these good things are happening, but it is just that surety factor which is actually missing out as far as your natal moon is concerned. So this is what would happen during the first part or the first Sancharam of Guru. Now, let's move on to the next Sancharam, which would ideally happen between Aipasi Nalam Dedi to Margari Anjam Dedi, which is going to be from October 21st, 2018 to December 20th, 2018. And here, Jupiter, which is again in that 7th only, again in the same Rashi here only, which is the Vrikshaga Rashi here only. But here, the transit, or here the Sancharam, to be very, very specific, happens from Vishakam to Anusha Nakshatram. So Anusham as a Nakshatram is completely under the influence of Saturn or Shani. And here, Shani automatically becomes your Yoga Adhipati, which means he signifies your 9th. And he also signifies your karma, which means something to do with your job. So automatically, there is a very good relationship between Saturn and a Rishaba Rasi Native, because he signifies all the luck that you're supposed to be getting in life. He signifies something to do with the job that you're supposed to be having in life. So automatically or naturally, this period seems to be very, very favorable. But there is also an underlying thing which is also happening here in your chart, the Shani, which is supposed to signify all your luck, which is supposed to signify something to do with karma. Now, when I say karma, karma does not necessarily just mean your job. Karma just means the accumulation of the good and bad that you've probably done in this birth and your last birth, for which you need to be paying back. For which you need to be paying back in the sense that if you've done something good, you are automatically going to be getting the good things that you deserve. If you've probably done something bad consciously, it's time for you to actually pay back all of that. And automatically, you're going through an Ashtama Shani phase where Shani is directly here in Dhanusha Rashi, which is in the 8th. So this is the Ashtama Shani Kala for you, which means something to do with paying back, something to do with paying back your karmic debts. And here, the Ashtama Shani automatically also implies something to do with the luck factors that you probably deserve, something to do with the job that you probably need to have, could be failing you automatically because Saturn, who signifies all of that from your natal moon, that is from Rishaba Rashi, is directly getting into the 8th. 8th means he's getting into a Maraivastanam, or he's actually losing his complete strength. So this means, the things which are supposed to be having naturally as far as job is going to be a little difficult for you owing to the Ashtama Shani. But nonetheless, since Guru is a Shubha Graha, and since he's supposed to be giving you that Shubha Anugraha, something to do with all things concerning your job, all things concerning something to do with your business, because karma automatically either means job, either means business, either means new business, new job, getting accustomed to a new atmosphere. All of that will happen. But at the same time, the 8th also has to function because your Ashtama Shani is also functioning. So how would this actually pan out? This would pan out in such a way wherein you get into a job, you get into a new environment, you start a new line of business, because remember, I already told you before, the possibility of having a ubatoril, more than one occupation, is automatically functional as per your natal moon only. So in order to come into, complete conclusions, in order to come into accurate predictions, you need to look into your natal chart. So all of this is just a generic prediction. So automatically something to do with job, something to do with a new line of business or ubatoril is fully functional from your natal moon standpoint of view. So it will just be that you start a new line of business and it's very difficult for you to understand the complete hang of a business, because Shani signifies something to do with karma, something to do with job or career. And Saturn automatically indicates the employees or Torilaligal. So people who probably report to you in case you're running a business, or people who probably need to report to you as far as job, you will be having a little bit of issues as far as all of this is concerned. But remember, I told you, Shani is supposed to be your friend from a Rishaba Rashi standpoint of view, and he signifies the yogas that you're supposed to be getting. So it just means a struggle to get a grip as far as your job is concerned, a struggle to understand the complete business or your complete job, a struggle in terms of just toiling about things. Toiling about means doing a thing again and again, because it is all about repetition which is involved here. So it's all about hardcore labor, it's all about toiling it out, sweating it out, and after that, because he's considered as a Natpa Graham, which means a friendly Graha, because he's supposed to be a Yoga Graha, and because of the Anugraha of Jupiter, automatically something to do with job, something to do with the luck factors, something to do with recovering from ailments, because Shani automatically also signifies something to do with ailments, is automatically there. Now, what can you do during this point in time? Now, for people who've already had a consultation with me, if you're going through an Ashtama Shani or if you're going through a 7.5 Shani, I always give you these things that you're supposed to be following as far as your Ashtama Shani is concerned. The first thing is you just need to toil it out. That is the only solution. So as long as you do your work and you just focus on your work without actually looking into the result, Saturn is not supposed to be bothering you, because he is supposed to be a Graha which just signifies karma. And I also give you the Shani herbal remedy that you can definitely practice. That is for the clients. But for the rest of you, it's time anyways for you to visit the power spots of Shani. Power spots of Shani which is in Tirunallar, which is in Shani Shingnapur. So any of these two places, of course, Shani Shingnapur is specifically for males. So any of these two places is something that you can visit, because any which ways you're going through an Attama Shani phase where Saturn is right here, the 8th. So that is one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is, anyways, any place that you probably are in, there would obviously be a temple or an alayam which has the Sannidhi, or which has a Sannidhi for all the Navagrahas, including Shani. So on a Saturday, you can visit, or on a Saturday during a Shani Hora, you can visit the Sannidhi which has the Navagrahas, and specifically for Shani, you can light a sesame oil lamp in front of Shani, and you can offer him the flower which is associated with Shani, which is Karunkuvalai in Tamil. So the English, I don't know the English word for it, but the English word for it would obviously be a blue lotus or a oval pondweed. But it is definitely not the blue Shankapushpa. So a lot of people confuse this with that. So it is called Karunkuvalai, which is a flower which is associated with Saturn, which is a flower which can appease Saturn. So yes, you can connect with Shani like that. So this is as far as the second Sanchara of Guru is concerned. Now let's move on to the last or the final Sanchara, which would last throughout the transit, of Jupiter through the next year. So the next Sanchara of Jupiter happens through Keta Nakshatra, which means Jupiter or Guru traverses across the Nakshatra of Ketai right here. And it is still in the same Rashi here, which is 7th again. And Ketai as a Nakshatram is controlled by Budan or Mercury. And Mercury, from your natal moon standpoint of view, he signifies the second, which indicates earnings in your life. And he also signifies your family. He also signifies what we call as Vak in Tamil, or something to do with communication. It is not just plain communication. It's about your Vak Thiramai in terms of, how you communicate with people. And it's also about commitments associated with that communication, which means if you tell something, will you keep up your word? Will you actually go about and keep up your word in doing things in terms of telling what you told and actually converting that into a proper action, or do something for people. And he controls your fifth from your natal moon only. So we're not talking about your natal chart here, because I don't have access to any of your natal charts. So here the fifth automatically means something to do with planning, something to do with executing that plan, and the action plan that you have in order to execute that plan. So it's all about planning and execution, and what you get owing to that planning and execution. So that is what it is all about. So it is actually considered as the Purva Punyadipati. So which seems good, which means something to do with earnings automatically has to operate. Something to do with what you yearn for in life also has to come for you. Yearn for from what perspective? The fifth automatically indicates the Putra Sthanam for the natal chart or from the natal moon. So something to do with child or childbirth. But simultaneously, it is during this time right from December 21st, 2018 onwards, not till 2019, but during the time periods that I had mentioned earlier, when something to do with the Athisaram or inline motion and a Vakragati, wherein it comes back, happens. So during this point in time of Athisaram and retrograde, there can be results which are not very, very favorable. Now, not very, very favorable from what level or from what perspective is what we need to look at. So here, Mercury does not just signify your communication, earnings and all of that. He also signifies money in general. He also signifies green money or green currency. So here, it is about building a new line of business. It is about getting into a new job. It's also about travel to a certain extent, but it is also about loans on how you actually go about and execute these things. So there is a huge possibility here, because here something to do with the Athisaram and the Vakram is happening here in the 8th sign from your natal moon, 8th, which indicates something to do with secrecy. So here there is a lot of possibility wherein you just get into something new and you require some kind of a money for getting into something new, and without the knowledge of your family members, without the consent of your family members, without even them knowing, you get into taking some money. You get into taking some loans. Now this probably happens, or this actually happens during the Adhishara Kalam, wherein Jupiter directly gets into the 8th. And once he gets into the retrograde motion is when something to do with creditors come back to you and ask you for the money. Now this is for people in business. This is for people who even dabble with loans, personal loans, credit cards. So, some you want in terms of building a house, getting some money for something to do with hospitalization or Vaidya Selava, or something to do with just going from one place to another place, constructing a house. So for this is what something to do with this money would be involved, and this wouldn't be happening with the complete consent of your family members. And once the retrograde motion starts, then is when something to do with creditors would come back to you. Now, there is another side to all of this here. What if there is no or nothing to do with money associated happens here? Remember, the second is all about Vaka. The second is all about the commitments that you make owing to a communication. It is not necessarily a communication. Budan also signifies something to do with writing or documents. So it could just be that you commit on something. You commit on something which is beyond your capability. Like for example, you go for a job. And now, I wouldn't call it even an example. This is what would happen in dictum. So you probably apply for a job, you probably go in for an interview, and you give an interview, and you kind of, amplify your resume or amplify your profile and say that, this is what I can do for the organization, or this is what I can do for the company or the institution. So it just means over amplification of things, because remember, it is getting into Athisaram, and it is only when it gets back to a Vakragati that your boss realizes that, this person is not really what he told me he is all about. So that is when your boss actually finds out. Or from an education standpoint of view, now I'm using these words or because we're just talking about Rashi, and there can be millions and zillions of people who belong to the same Rashi. So everything specifically comes from a chart and not necessarily completely from a Rashi. So here, if you probably are contemplating on something to do with education, it just means you take up an education thinking that you can perform well, thinking that, in spite of it being challenging, in spite of it being something which you cannot pull up, you commit to that. And it is only when the retrograde motion happens back, that is when you realize this is not something that I can do. This is not something that I can continue. But nonetheless, somehow owing to the associations, somehow owing to that kind of fillip that you get with people around you, your family members, your husband, your wife, the other people around you, the relative circle, all of this comes to a balance wherein you realize what you can do, you realize what you cannot do, which means after a retrograde motion happens and after it gets back to that 7th completely, you probably could just come into a conclusion that, this is what I can do. That is point 1. That is one point of realization. Or point 2 is, somehow I've committed to this. Somehow, I've gotten into a job because of telling this or that. And somehow I will be able to pull it out. So it will be a little bit of a difficulty involved because something to do with the 8th again is in play. And somehow you will be making that good amount of money. So it's about committing beyond what you can actually deliver. After a certain point, realizing that you cannot do anything about it, and move on. Move on, not negatively, even though you will perceive everything negatively, because Jupiter is a graha which is completely inimical to you. Which means you perceive that this is not good, but the good things are happening. Which means out of chaos and confusions, somehow you pull off your job. Somehow you get the money owing to that job, which means the sum total of everything is not about whether you've amplified your profile or whether you're able to deliver or not. The sum total of it is whether you get your salary into your account every month. So that would happen because something to do with the dhanam has to happen. The sum total of, probably getting into an alliance, probably over amplifying the profile, especially when you get into an alliance, is not about the sum total. Is not about that, it's about the sum total wherein a marriage happens. So this is the way it would function. And again, even if you're talking about an education, the sum total is not whether you realize whether you can go about with this course or not, but the sum total is somehow pulling off or somehow going through the entire course. So that is how it is. All right, friends. So how you can actually go about and meander across this situation. The easiest way, at least from a Rishaba Rashi perspective, Rishaba Rashi, automatically a female Rashi. So the easiest way is to connect with Madurai Meenakshi Amman. That is what I suggest to all Rishaba Rashi natives. So this could be an easy hack to face this entire Sancharam, which would be happening between Margari Aram Dedi to Aipasi Nalam Dedi. So Aipasi Nalam Dedi from a Tamil standpoint of view becomes the Vigari Varudam. So which is the next Ande from a Tamil standpoint of view, which is between December 21st to 2018 to 3rd November 2019. Alright friends. So to sum it up, how is this entire transit is going to be? The sum total is very simple. It is going to be good. But at the same time, because of the kind of association Jupiter has with your Rashi, what is going to happen is that you're going to be getting all these good things, but it's all about, getting into something to do with things which not many people know about. Not many people means your circle. So you will be hiddenly doing so many things. You will be literally manipulating on the little nitty-gritties of life without people around you, without people in your known circle knowing. So there would be some good things which are happening around you, which means a new business, a new job, getting into a marriage. But there is something which will also trouble you simultaneously, because there is an element of manipulation. There is an element of, little micromanagement that you're doing, which could be in the form of what? You start a business, but from somewhere, from everywhere, you take some kind of a loan, and not everybody in your family knows about it. You get married, but there are some little secrets which are hidden. There are some little things which are amplified, and somehow you go about and do that. Somehow you seem like that happy-go-lucky person who's automatically getting all these things in life, but behind the scenes, there is an element of little things that you're doing which are not really the nicest of things, literally. But, in order to live a life, you need to be doing all these little things. And these little things would be happening or would be functioning at the underlying level. So it could be in the form of loans that you take. It could be in the form of relationships that you make. It could be in the form of anything to do with, going through the job, going through the business in different ways, which may not be conventionally right, because somehow Jupiter becomes the 8th from your natal Rashi and he is getting into that 7th. So that is the only reason all of this is happening. So the sum total of it is good. The way you go about it, yes, it could be questionable at times, but what really matters at the end of the day is whether you are having some amount of happiness. So definitely this is going to be a breathing space for you, considering that you're actually going through an onslaught of an Ashtama Shani phase. Alright friends.